All right, welcome and thank you for tuning in to another episode on the Healthy Runner podcast. As we are live within the Healthy Runner Facebook group with two guests today to talk to you about how to start running and marathon training for beginners.
Hey,
So
hey.
today we have, you can go ahead, say hey,
I just can't
hey.
contain my excitement, Dwayne.
I know, that's awesome. So today, guys, we have the amazing duo of Mo and Harrison Crum from Marathon Training for Beginners podcast. They're going to share their story and educate us on how they got started running, nutrition and fueling, shoes, training without injuries, and so much more for beginner runners. So welcome to the show, Mo and Harrison.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody. We're excited to be here. Thank you, Dwayne, for taking the time with us and everybody listening.
Oh, yeah. It's an
No, I
honor.
am
Thank you
super.
so much.
Oh, you're welcome. No, I'm super pumped to have you guys on. So, guys, runners out there, or even if you don't consider yourself a runner, right? So that's what I love about your guys' show is that even if you don't consider yourself a runner, are you wondering what you should wear to start running? Or can a beginner runner run a marathon? Or how should a beginner train for a marathon? Or how long does it take to train for a marathon for a beginner? Right. So these are all the questions that we're going to kind of get into and delve into during this episode. So Mo and Harrison are going to share the strategies that they learned as they started out as beginner runners. And for those of you who are here on the Facebook Live within our Healthy Runner Facebook group, throw down live in the comment box there. And if you're catching the replay, thank you so much for catching the replay. Let us know you caught it. Type in hashtag team replay and we'll give you a little shout out. So let's get started with our dynamic warm-up. So now I know you guys are a big fan of the Spark dynamic warm-up that we have, the Healthy Runner dynamic warm-up. But this is the first question we ask all our guests. And ladies first. So let's start with you, Mo.
Wait, I'm
So
so
tell us
excited.
like where are you from? What do you do?
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, we're gonna ask about the YouTube. Which one is my favorite? Because I can tell you. Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Mo Crum. And my husband Harris and we reside in Gilbert, Arizona. We've got two beautiful children, a boy and a girl. And we are just so happy to be here. We're both beginner runners. Our story is pretty much like the neighbor next door. I never considered myself a runner. He never considered himself a runner. And how it happened was just very naturally. And it's just been an amazing experience to be able to connect with people and this passion for running and learning how do I run? Where do I go? So hi.
Hey, I'm Harrison. And we just want everybody to know that, look, this is a sport that all of us naturally know how to do. We were born walking and running and, we all can do it, but the distance of a marathon or a half marathon is daunting. And so our objective is really to help everybody really understand and feel that this is something that anybody can do. Mm-hmm. It's daunting. And when you get out there and you start to search marathon training, it's like, what are all these terms? What does cadence mean? What does tempo mean? What's a heel drop? Like there's so many things that you hear and you have no idea. We try to break that down in our podcast, and hopefully tonight we can share a little bit of that with you.
Yeah, no, and that's what I love about your podcast. And I'm trying to think because I want to say we probably messaged each other, like sent a DM on Instagram back in the day. I feel like I literally remember the day. It was a summer day, and I love doing yard work. Like I'm big like landscaper, so I was like out in the yard, and what I listen to when I'm out there is podcasts. And I think I must have like had to like drop a post or something on Instagram. And I want to say like you DM me or I DM'd you. I forget how we saw each other and we got in a conversation. I was like, oh, cool. I got to like check out your podcast. And I remember actually being outside planting some perennials and listening to your first episode of your podcast. And I was like, wow, this is different. This is definitely different than many of the running podcasts I listened to. And I really enjoyed it, even though I feel like I do have some experience now running, actually coming up on my 10-year run anniversary soon.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah. Like, I feel like I got some stuff under my belt, like I know some knowledge, but I still enjoyed like every episode. Like I literally listened to every episode of your podcast.
Wow.
And
honored.
But I love how you explain things and you quote unquote ask those stupid questions, right? That like
Right.
people are embarrassed to be like, what is cadence, or what is a PR or a PB, or like,
Yeah.
I don't understand this lingo. And
Yeah.
I'll be the first to tell you, like, sometimes I'm guilty as charged where I'll throw these terms around and I forget sometimes. And Coach Kat in our community, she's always like reminding me, because she's like passionate about working with beginner runners as well. And sometimes I like totally forget, like, oh yes, duh, I'm saying that because I've just heard that lingo for so many years now. But let me just give a little shout out, 'cause you guys are like getting us a strong audience today, man. They're coming on strong. So I just
Do we
want
have
to
like
give a
three
little
whole
shout
people
out.
out there?
Oh, man, we got 20 people now on the live.
Okay.
So Marv is here, Whitney's here, Andrea's here, Billy's here. Billy just joined our community, so
Hi,
I'm
Billy.
pretty sure
Hey,
he's
Billy.
in your community. So Brianna's here. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad you jumped on here today. And Whitney says, "Yay to Arizona!" So Whitney's
Yes.
in the
That's
Tucson,
right.
Arizona area. So
She said Tucson.
yes.
Is that what you said? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
That's enemy territory.
Uh-oh.
Harrison.
So
No, we're both Sun Devils.
Yeah.
We're both Sun Devils.
Yeah,
But
fork 'em.
like my entire family in Tucson, it's the University of Arizona. So my entire family, they're Wildcats.
Yes.
University of Arizona.
Okay.
So we have this like rivalry going on.
make no mistake, we're Sun Devils here. So
But we love the Wildcats. We do. We love them.
no, Tucson's beautiful. Tucson's like what you picture when you think of like Arizona desert.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And I don't know, those of you who are listening on the podcast, you're going to have to check out the video version of this on the Spark Your Training YouTube channel, because Harrison was throwing down like gang symbols. I don't even know what he was throwing down. He was like, I don't know what that was, but apparently
okay. That's the trident. This is a trident.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we should have explained
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just naturally happens when we say Sun Devils.
Yep.
Just, like,
Okay.
We're
don't even
proud.
know.
We're proud.
Like, oh.
But,
There we
but we
go.
do have to say real quick, Dwayne,
Yeah.
not to hijack your interview, but we did live on the East Coast for about 5 years. So we know your backyard too. And gorgeous Connecticut. I mean, we would live there still. The problem is that we have kids and we couldn't make it work living out there without any family, but we love the East Coast.
Yeah. No, you were in the Boston area, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. Very
Loved
cool.
it.
Love Boston. Don't like the baseball team. Sorry for you listeners out there, but I am a huge Yankee fan.
All right.
Yeah.
But I love Boston. Boston's a great city. It is a very, very good city. So Ashley's here on the live. Whitney's here. Amber's here. Lou's here. Thank you so much for joining. Bala's here. Donna's here as well. Whitney does say "Go Wildcats." That's what Whitney says. And Christy's here on the live. Thank you so much for joining, guys. So maybe give folks a little background on when you ran your first race. So Harrison, I believe you ran your first marathon, right? First, from listening to your podcast. Tell us when you did that, and then how many races have you run since?
Yeah. It's funny because with COVID and everything, the numbers are probably going to seem really low. So I've really only run 2 official races and 1 virtual race. And then everything else has been just training runs. My very first race was the Gilbert, Arizona half marathon. And that was in 2019 in November. And then my very first marathon was this year, or I guess 2020. I feel like we're still in 2020. It was in January, the Rock and Roll Phoenix Marathon. And then for Mo, she has done a virtual half.
Yes. I've only done, well, I'm not going to say only. I have done a half marathon, but it was virtually because due to COVID. So I am literally the definition of beginner. Like,
Yep.
We do not try at all to say that we know all these things or that we've done all these marathons. We're literally just going through the motions and trying to, figure out along the way. So, but it's been really exciting to see like our progression through it all.
Yeah. And really we want to bring people along with us through the journey, rather than having us already be elites or, 30 races under our belt and then starting the podcast. It's no, we are just starting out. And so you guys can come along with us on the journey.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Mo, you crushed your first half marathon, by the way. I heard your episode, and I think I agree with Harrison's take that you crushed that half marathon, especially without having the spectators around. Like the next live one that you do, you are going to crush it. And I did hear that little secret at the end of your episode that your next race is going to be double that distance.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. That is exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. You are so kind. I will definitely say when I first started training to run a marathon, I never even considered running a full marathon. That was not even on the docket, nothing. And then going through my training plan and then doing the half, and I came back and I was just so overcome with emotion. And Harrison looked at me and I'm just like, I think I'm gonna do a full. Like, this is gonna happen. And it was just like this renewed sense of self. It was really cool because I feel like I've really found myself through running. And so I'm excited. Thank you. I'm really excited for the full. I really hope it's gonna, happen
Yeah.
with live spectators because I think it's gonna be interesting.
It was supposed to be in February, and then it was supposed to be the Mesa Marathon, Mesa,
Yep.
Arizona, and then they postponed that because of COVID. So now we've got our eyes on Nashville Rock and Roll in April. So far,
Cool.
it's still on. So we booked our flights. We're going.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's going to be awesome. And hearing your story and the both of your story, actually, this reminded me of, it was a year ago today that my wife ran her first half marathon.
Oh,
Awesome.
congratulations.
We went down and did our first Run Disney. And that was
Oh.
literally last weekend, was the anniversary. I was seeing like the post by Run Disney. They were doing
Yeah.
the virtual this year,
Oh.
and she ran her first, but how she described it was like exactly what you said, where, it was just so emotional, like, and I ran it
Yes.
with her and just like crossing the finish line. And then it was so funny because I had her do a live within our Healthy Runner Facebook group. This is before I even started the podcast. And we kind of did like how you guys are sitting right now. I was literally sitting here in my dining room with her. So I'm like getting deja vu right now. So it's crazy.
Oh.
It's like a year later.
Yeah,
But
that's so
no, I
cool.
love hearing stories like that on how running does change people. And it really does, right? Like as
Oh,
far
yeah.
as the mental clarity, just the self-esteem wise. And like,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know myself, it's just, you're so much more productive in all aspects of life. And I think that's like the information you're sharing, and hopefully through our podcast as well, is we're just helping people and or keeping them company on their runs.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
literally jumped on
Exactly.
a call with the runner today, and they're like, I was literally listening to you in my ears. It's crazy that I'm hearing you on the phone. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully it was educational.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything you do, Dwayne, is educational
Yeah.
and like top of the
Top
line.
notch
Like
for sure.
that's why
uh,
we're also grateful to be able to like connect with this community because as beginners and knowing literally nothing, we're able to consult with professionals and those
Yeah.
who do have this vast knowledge and kind of bring it all full circle. So it's been really cool to see that and to see the effects it's had on like our journey and also like friends around the world. So
Absolutely. And for those of you who are here on the live, let me know if you are a beginner runner yourself or you're looking to run your first half marathon or your first marathon. Just type in beginner into the comment box. And then also feel free to drop any questions. Like Mo and Harrison gave you like free reign. Drop any
oh yeah.
questions that you
Yeah.
have in the comment box, and I'll get to them during the interview and we'll kind of get those in. So we want to hear from you guys as you come in. Andrea says that she loves beginners, and Robin, so thank you so much for joining. Robin's here on the live. So guys, we're going to
Hello.
get into our first question. First
All
question
right.
I have for you
Okay.
is, can a beginner run a marathon?
That's a good question, Dwayne. The answer is absolutely, because we're all beginners when we start everything in life, right? And marathoning is no different. A lot of people think, you had to have run in high school or in college,
Mm.
or you have to be like an athlete to run a marathon. And the bottom line is, no, you don't. It helps. It helps to have a fitness base. It helps to be fit and in shape, but it's not necessary. I mean, Mo and I, just a few years ago, we were not in very good shape. I mean, we posted it to our Instagram. We posted a picture of us back in, I think it was 2015, and we were recently married and we were on the East Coast eating all the cannolis and
Yeah, every cookie in New York and every cannoli in
yeah,
Boston.
we had to try everything in New York and Boston. And so fitness just wasn't a priority for us. But the second that we made it a priority, it's changed our lives. But to answer your question about can a beginner run a marathon, absolutely. But don't make mistakes about it. I mean, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some consistency, which we can dive deeper into. But it's definitely attainable for really anybody.
So before we take a kind of deep dive, just on the surface level, if someone was wondering like, hey, could I even run a marathon? How long does it actually take to train for a marathon as a beginner?
Well, I think it depends. I think it depends on like what goal you've set. So if you're training for a full marathon opposed to a half marathon, your plans are going to be a little bit different. And typically, like I know Harrison, he's read a couple of different training plans and books and things like that. And they're all so very different, but it's just based on like, I don't know, what would you say? Like
I would say you're running base, if you're already running 20 miles a week, and you're running 3 or 4 times a week, 5 miles at a minimum each run, you're probably ready to start a training plan for a full marathon and do it in, 4 months, 3 or 4 months. But if you can't run a 5K or even a mile for that matter, that's okay. I might want to ask you to give yourself a year, to train for that marathon. But Dwayne, you're the pro. How would you answer that question?
Man, honestly, my answer would have been exactly the same. Like that was perfect. And it kind of carries on from what we were talking about last week. Last week, we were talking like training cycles and like base building and kind of building that foundation. So I love how you brought that up. But yeah, I would say, most of the runners I work with, if they're going to run a marathon, I design like a 16-week plan, or sometimes people do a 20-week plan, but like you said, it's all about that base, right?
Yeah. All about that base.
So we can make that a TikTok, right?
Hey, yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. That could go viral.
We should do a joint TikTok. Yeah.
We got to collab on that.
Yeah.
We do.
Sure.
Yeah. So Mo and Harrison like to dabble in a little TikTok as well. I've kind of dabbled in a little bit. I haven't been as consistent as I need to be, but
don't go there. We have
TikTok is a whole other monster, man.
We have a love-hate relationship with TikTok. We'll use it for like a month and then be like, turn it off, because it takes hours out of our day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, it takes the focus away from what you need to do. That's exactly how I felt as well. But yeah, we can have fun one day and get on there. Right. But yeah, no, I would agree with as far as lengthwise for training for a marathon. So now, what do you say? So let's say we have a runner who literally just started in 2021. They're like, all right, I'm going to make a change, like pandemic. 2020 was like the worst year of my life, and I'm kind of out of shape, and I want to try this running thing. Like, what is the bare minimum of someone? Now, I'm not going to say they're a runner yet, right? Someone needs to like just start running. Like, what should they wear?
That's a good question. Mo loves talking about clothes, so we should let her answer this one.
I do, but I think the number one thing that you should have, like if you're training for marathon, personally, is to get a good pair of running shoes. Because when I first started running, and this is like throughout, I was a cheerleader growing up, and we would like run across, around the track and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, I can just put on like any pair of shoes and be perfectly fine running these distances. And it was honestly not until I started training for a marathon seriously that I realized how important it is to be well fitted for an appropriate, comfortable pair of running shoes. It tremendously helps in terms of like the longevity of like your training and being able to, be healthy with just your body and your feet and everything like that. But like, I don't know, that's my number one thing.
Shoes. Yeah.
Shoes
are important. And that's you could probably do like a whole Facebook Live just on shoes. So I don't know how deep you want to get on that.
Yeah. We have.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Shoes are, I underestimated shoes, to be quite honest. And then when we went into one of the running stores locally, I was like, this is a world. There's actually, what are Hoka's? What are, like Brooks? Just mind blowing.
There's so many. But when we talk about what to wear, so aside from shoes, because I agree with Mo, that's like if you wore nothing else outside, you just need a good pair of shoes. I think the second most important thing is to look at the weather and base your outfit on the weather.
Mm-hmm.
So the rule of thumb that's worked really well for us is kind of that 20 degrees rule. And I don't know if you've talked about this before, but basically it's whatever temperature it is outside, you want to dress as though it's going to be 20 degrees hotter. So basically, I don't know if I said that right. Let me break it down. Let me break it down a better way. So if you go outside and you're wearing a short sleeve shirt, as you run, your body's going to feel as though it's about 20 degrees hotter. So if it's 60 degrees outside, and so it's a bit chilly and you put on a jacket, well, by the time you start running, Now it's like it's 80 degrees outside. Well, you wouldn't wear a jacket in 80 degrees. Okay. So if it's 30 degrees outside, dress as though it's 50. If it's 40, dress as though it's 60. Kind of use that as a rule of thumb. And that's worked tremendously for Mo and I think for a lot of the people who follow our show.
Absolutely. And that was one of the biggest mistakes you made, right? In your first race, I think I heard on your
100%.
podcast. Yeah, you just
Yes.
overdressed. And that's what most beginners do. Like we've all been there. Like everyone, like guys, those of you who are here on the live, like have you guys overdressed for a race before? Just type in overdressed into the comment box. I'm curious to see if you've been there. Because I know I've been there. I definitely like did that race and I wore long sleeves and I was like, oh no. And you're just like a mile in and you're like starting to overheat already. And you're like, holy cow, I picked the wrong outfit. Right.
Yeah.
So no, that's a good rule of thumb. We never really talked about it in that respect as far as like 20 degrees, but I think that's perfect because like for me, I think about like a half marathon, my ideal temperature, ideal race outfit is like literally upper 50s, 60 degrees. And I'm wearing a tank top, shorts.
Exactly.
Like you're freezing before the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once you get going, that's like perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. So high 40s, low 50s, or even like low 60s, like you said, is perfect. But yeah, the 20 degrees has worked for us, but I think it also depends on the individual, right? So if you run hot or you run cold or, however, it might be 10 degrees for one person or 15 degrees for another person, but just experiment with that, and like you said, if you've got a race and it's going to get up to 80 degrees by the end of that race, dress for the end of the race, not the beginning of the race, because a lot of people will show up, to race day with like a throwaway jacket, which is perfect because you wear that up to the starting line and then you take it off right before you start, discard it to the side. You don't care because you bought it at Goodwill or, $10 at Walmart, and then you'll just thank yourself later.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So let me just catch up on comments here. I'm telling you, man, they're coming on strong for you guys. So Dina's here on the live. Thanks for joining. Coach Latoya is here. What's going on, Latoya? Guys, by the way, if you guys haven't seen that I dropped last week in our Facebook group that the Healthy Runner community did grow. So we grew by 4 more coaches. So we do have a total of 5 of us as a coaching team. So they're going to be providing a lot more content within our community, within our group, as well as a lot of the programs and the services that we'll be able to offer for our running community. So, and Latoya and Whitney as well is one of those coaches, and Coach Katz here and Lou. So they're all 4 on the live right now.
Oh, this is a lot of pressure. I don't know.
No. The thing that I love about like our coaching team too, is like, we are all so humble. And just like you guys, it's just like, they're such good people and they're so humble. And, even if we've been really experienced, like Lou is definitely the fastest of all of us. Right. So he's qualified for Boston. So he's met your goal, Harrison.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's like super fast, but he's like super humble, like such a nice guy. And he's like so smart though. He's like just brilliant. So yeah, awesome. I'm so excited for our team. But yeah, a lot of people have overdressed. Dina's been there. Latoya, Whitney's been there. Marva's been there. Andrea's been there. Kat's been there. Whitney does give the tip of doing arm sleeves. Perfect for Arizona weather, she says.
There you go.
I wonder if Whitney was the one. I don't know. We had I call them friends. I call them friends.
Yeah.
I'm a very like loving, let's all hug type of person. But we had someone, because we were talking about this and they did mention arm sleeves, and we haven't tried it yet, but it's
a great idea.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
We'll give that a shot and we'll let you know how it goes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Coach Kat says, no pressure, guys. She loves this topic. So she said, no pressure at all. That's like her passion, like I said. All right, so let's get into this. So we talked about what you should wear. So how should a beginner start to train for a marathon? Or like, how do I train for a marathon if I don't have any experience?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think you have to assess your baseline. When you go back to the beginning of our podcast, episode 1, the question was, Mo, what can you do? Because I had already done a marathon, but she hadn't run, period. And she said, well, I can probably run a mile, right? But for you, it might be a quarter mile. It might be, you can run for 20 seconds and then you're huffing and puffing, right? So I think you need to first assess where you're at, what's your baseline, and then you can start to do intervals. So you can do, all right, I'm going to run for a minute because that's all I can do. And then I'm going to walk. And then when I feel that I've caught my breath, I can run for another minute, right? And you slowly build. And, maybe you do a couch to 5K, which is basically just a program that will take you from nothing to running a 5K, which is about 3.1
Yep.
miles. And then from there, the nice thing about running is you've got it's almost like you've got a bar that you're raising, right? You do a 5K, great, check that off the list. You do a 10K, great, check that off the list. And you can go up from there. Some people are super brave, like Mo. She didn't do a 5K. She didn't do a 10K. She said, I'm doing a half marathon. And, she committed to it.
Brave or crazy.
But what we did is we developed a 25-week plan for her. So we said, okay, you can't run, period. I mean, she could run, but, not an extended period of time. And so on our Instagram, we did a 0 to half marathon plan. It was 25 weeks. So literally the first week, it was like, I think 3 or 4 miles total for the whole week.
Yeah.
And it was just slowly building you up, that 10% rule, going up 10% week over week. So you're not getting injured. Topic that you love. And so, but stick to that 10% rule and you'll be surprised what your body can do. And one thing that's so amazing about running is that it's a superpower that we all have. It's so incredible to see how quickly our bodies can change and adapt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important also to know that, if you're going to how to start running, you don't necessarily have to actually run. Like if you, for instance, my mom wants to do a 5K and she's always been super intimidated because she's like, I can't run. And I was like, well, you don't have to necessarily run the 5K. So she's like, well, I'm going to start walking. So her plan is to start walking and building that, like we talked about, that base, what she can do, what she can't do, and then see where she goes from there. So I think it's also just altering your mindset, not necessarily thinking you got to run it, just that you got to do it.
Yeah. And I think you got to enjoy it. If you're setting crazy goals that are just way out of reach, chances are you'll get hurt and chances are you're not going to enjoy the process. So do whatever is realistic that you're going to enjoy, but also that pushes you a little bit, because if you just say, all right, I'm just going to run 1 mile a day, forever, you're never going to improve. Of course, it's going to be hard to set those goals a little bit further. I was with my brother, he came into town and he's not a runner, as people always say. And I said, just run with me. Stop when you can't go any further. And he ran for 2 miles. He's like, wow, I haven't run for 2 miles since probably ever in my whole life. So yeah, I mean, you got to get past the mental block, but keeping in mind that you don't want to push it too far because you risk injury at that point.
Wow, such great sound advice. I love it. I couldn't agree more. I'm not even honestly going to add anything to that because you said it so well. I could not even do it justice. So I'm going to leave it there. No, seriously. So progression is key, right? And that's what you talked about. And our bodies adapt. Our bodies are amazing and they can adapt. And I agree with everything that you said. So if someone is thinking about doing their first marathon, what is a good marathon time for a beginner?
So my personal answer is just finishing. However, I will say though, if you are trying to qualify for Boston or another race, it all varies. So it varies on your age. And it also varies. What's the other factor? Gender. Yep.
Yep.
Age and gender. I forgot what was is it Lou? Is it Lou
Yeah.
who qualified? I wonder, he probably knows what it is for the male qualification times.
Yeah.
But I know for Harrison, he's got that ultimate goal. What is it?
It's 3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah. 3 hours. And then for me though, I really don't have a specific, I guess time. I will say though, with my half marathon, I knew that I wanted to just finish it, right? I just wanted to finish the race. I set a goal to finish and to run the entire time. That was just a personal thing that I wanted to do. And then my third thing was, hey, if I happen to finish and if I happen to run the whole time, it would be great to finish it in 4 hours. Cause then my pace was around 10 minutes? No.
You're talking the full or the half?
No, the half.
So 2 hours then.
2 hours. Sorry. 2 hours.
4 hours if it were full.
If it was the full. Yeah, that's right. That would be amazing.
No, yeah. A 4 hour. Yeah.
A full in. Sorry.
Full in 2 hours. Yeah. We've got Eliud Kipchoge Jr. right here.
I love it.
But
yeah, there's no good time to answer the question, Dwayne. I mean, not to beat around the bush. There's just no good time. Every time is good because everybody's different and has a different set of goals. We're all built differently. We all have a different fitness level. I think maybe just if you've never run before, figure out what your easy run pace is, and then just kind
Mhm.
of multiply that out by 26 miles, and you can kind of use that as a baseline. Or look at the cutoff time, 6 hours or 6.5 hours, that just kind of make that your end of your goal, and just, strive for something. But I think for your first marathon, try not to have a time goal. Just try to get out there, have fun, and really learn from that experience, because what you don't want is to stress yourself out
Mhm.
with a specific time. You go out too fast and then you can't finish the marathon, because that would be a real bummer, and then probably would taint your marathon experience for a long time. I think you want to just finish, get that feeling. What is it like? What to expect?
Mhm.
And then you can start working on some time goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've only run one full marathon, so I think I'm kind of losing track here, but my half marathon's like my jam. I think it's 26 I've run.
Nice.
But the
Wow.
full I've only done
Wow.
one. And
Yeah.
I did set a goal of getting under 4 hours, but I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, this is my first one,
Yeah.
and I just want to finish it.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I did cramp up at
Yeah.
mile 20 before I heard about salt tabs and all of that. And I had like these salt crystals all over my skin. It was like the weirdest thing,
Oh,
because that never happened to me before.
yeah.
And unfortunately, that happened where every muscle cramped up for a good 6 miles, where my legs were like stiff and I couldn't even bend
Oof.
my knees.
Oh.
So it was a very painful experience for the last 6 miles, but I did finish. And
Yeah.
so I'm happy that I did finish. But you're right. I think you're right in the fact of, if you set a time goal and you don't achieve it, like, you're disappointed in yourself. And if it's your
Yeah.
first 26.2, like, I was damn
Mhm.
proud. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I ran, I like you guys, I never ever, number one, consider myself a runner. So I've
Mhm.
always been like a gym person in college and after college, and I never ran till I had hip surgery. And then I started running 10 years ago. And even then, it was like 4 years into my journey that I even would call myself a runner, right? Because that's
Mhm.
what we do, right? We never
Yeah.
are
Mhm.
like, yeah, I'm a runner.
Yeah.
But same thing, I would like never call myself a marathoner, and I just wanted to finish. But I think if you set a time goal, then you're just setting yourself up for disappointment. So
Mm.
anyone's first race, honestly, I tell the runners I work with, nowadays, is just like, our goal is to finish. And
Yeah.
then we have a baseline to go
Yep.
from there. And then you can set goals based upon that and how you did. And
Exactly.
then obviously there are so many dynamics as far as the environment. How did you fuel in your
Yeah.
nutrition, hydration, everything, right? So for me, like cramping up, a good example, I bonked and it
Yeah.
happened. And
Mhm.
hopefully I will run another full one day, and I'll
Yes,
be
you
able
will.
to, yeah. So I'll be able to kind of get a little revenge, if you will, on that experience.
Yeah.
But setting the time goals will just kind of set you up for failure. So yeah, I was kind of asking you that question just to, because I just want to get the point across that if you're a beginner and you're listening to this right now, don't focus on the time for your first marathon or even half
Right.
Mhm.
marathon. Like, just focus on finishing the distance, right? You're
Yep.
doing something that 99% of the population cannot do,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? So you should be proud about that. So no, I agree completely. So what should, let's say someone's getting ready, right? They're scheduled for their marathon. Maybe they're doing a virtual one early spring, or they're doing one late spring. Um, what should someone expect from their first marathon? Like, what did you guys experience either running your first half marathon, Mo, or running your first 26.2, Harrison? What should you expect?
That's a great question, Dwayne.
Mm.
Mo, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, my experience, because I haven't ran in like an in-person marathon yet, it's probably going to be a little bit different in terms of expectation, but I will tell you what you could possibly expect from like running the distance of the miles is that it it might test you mentally. So what I mean by that is, I knew that I was going to have to do the 13.1 miles, and I knew that it was going to happen eventually. So like, I think right before I ran my marathon, I think my longest distance was like 12. Was
Yeah.
it 12?
Hmm.
Well, it was 12. And so I was like, oh, this I can do. Like, I just did it. I can do it. But I will tell you, going into and starting my half marathon virtually, I started psyching myself out a little
Yeah.
bit. I started thinking like, whoa, wait, I'm technically running this. What's happening? And so there's definitely going to be a little bit of, at least for me,
Yeah.
is going to be a mind game. Just the fact that everything you've been training for is happening in this moment. So it's no
Totally.
longer like a training run.
Yeah, it's a surreal experience. I experienced the exact same thing. Mine was in my full about 5 miles in. And I was like, whoa, like I'm in the race. I've been training all this time. Everybody's expecting me to finish, but I'm only 5 miles in. Like I have 21 more to go. And so it's a mind game. So I would say just try not to overthink it.
Mhm.
Just pretend it's another training run.
Yes.
You know, I was running my marathon and there was a couple that I sparked conversation with because I'm that guy who nobody wants to be around, but I just chat you up while we're in the middle of a marathon. So sorry if I find you guys on the course, but found out they're from California and they're just like, yep, it's just another training run for us. And we ended up finishing really close to each other, but and that stuck with me. You know, it is just another training run, and look at it that way. As far as expectations on race day, I would say there will be things that go wrong, you know, and to try to just know that's going to happen. For example, on my virtual half, I talked about this in our episode, but my speakers started cutting out, and I'm one, I have to run to something because I get bored. I have ADHD, so I get way too, I have a hard time focusing. And so I need that music or that podcast in my ear. You know, in my full, I bonked just like you did, Dwayne. So something is going to go wrong, and be okay with that. Just expect that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's happened to me so many times too. And I'm the exact same way. Like I always need to listen to something in my ear.
Yeah.
So if it's a fast run, then it's music. If it's a slow,
Yeah.
easy run, it's going to be a podcast. And
Oh, you guys
that
are
happened
so
to me. We really are. It's like crazy. We have the same watch.
We have the same watch. I've got black, you've got white.
Your haircuts look similar.
Same hair.
What is
I hope-
happening?
Harrison's like the brother, my long lost brother.
I hope when I'm 40, I look as good as Dwayne.
I will say, Dwayne, when he first told me that, he's like, yeah, like Dwayne, like, he's like, I need to look like him. When I'm like, okay, Harrison.
Dwayne's got me beat in the
When I
muscle
get
game.
old,
That's my,
No.
when
not
I get
like
40.
that. No.
when I grow up.
No, when he always says when he grows up. But no, but seriously, yeah.
Yeah, you've got us on the muscle building aspect. We look at these videos that you put out, and we're like, man,
Just watch your dynamic. We watch
he's
it every
jacked.
morning. You're just like, how is he? I'm like holding on to something.
Yeah.
You guys are too kind, but yeah, no, it's definitely not what it used to be back in my glory days. So I'm always trying to,
you know
trying
what?
to get better.
You should post a picture in the comments later, maybe.
All right.
We gotta see like a show. Did you do shows? Were you a bodybuilder?
No, man.
Gotta see a speedo picture.
No.
Come on. No? Oh, okay.
I might have had one in a college dorm one time. You know, you and your roommates, you know, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. All right. So we're going to like get so off track here, but I could just like talk to you guys forever. So, all right, we talked about expectations. So now let's talk about preparation. So as you guys know, like I'm a big planner, and I kind of sent you a little outline of what we were doing tonight, but what do you think about, what tips can you share with runners out there who are running their first marathon in terms of like preparation? How do you prepare?
Okay, I'm going to take this because Harrison, so when I did my 12-mile training run before the marathon, I was like, oh, I'll go to sleep at like midnight, and I'll just wake up at, the time I need to, like 5, and I don't need to like drink water, and that was the biggest mistake because I, like, before my virtual race day, I can't even tell you the fact of like, getting an adequate amount of sleep and hydration. It's huge. It's huge. And even just waking up, like half an hour to like.
Oh, I'd say a lot more than that.
Oh, okay. Like,
I think it depends.
It depends. But like for me, waking up a significant time earlier than I was originally planning helped me tremendously, because my actual half marathon compared to my training 12-mile marathon were total opposites in preparation. And I can tell you that, like, I was like, wow.
Like when you actually prepared,
yes,
your results were so much better than
my
when
pace,
you just winged it.
Like, and again, I wasn't focused on time, but I did notice going back over with Harrison, my pace, and it was
she
night
did great. She
It was
crushed
night
it.
and day. Yeah. So sleep, hydration, and that's not and eating the right amount of like carbs and protein. The night before, even like days leading up was really significant for me.
Yeah. The question of preparation, Dwayne, is so deep because it's preparation for the race, but it's also actual preparation, for your whole training cycle. So I think it really depends on what you want to dive into here, because, if it's how do you prepare for race day, the week of race, race week, then that's a different answer than I think,
yeah. Sorry, I should have clarified.
No, yeah. I think there's so many ways you could take this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would even add into the fact of, yes, you need to prepare before a race. And then we also preach like practice what you practice as you prepare. So even those long runs, training runs, Mo, that you were doing, like the 12 mile or 11, like I would have told you, I want you to wake up at the same exact time you're going to wake up for your race. I want you to eat the same exact thing you're going to eat. I want you to hydrate how you're going to hydrate for the race. So then it's like more familiar, because we already talked about like our minds are already like playing tricks on us on race day anyway, right? For that first race. So if you can have as many things as normal as possible for your first like 13.1, your first 26.2, then I think that helps. And that's why I strategically also planned my first marathon in kind of my home court, if you will, because I'm originally from New York. So I grew up on Long Island, and I always would love to run New York City Marathon. Right. So I always figured, because I'm like a New Yorker, I love going into the city, always used to go into the city, take like dance classes and like hang out and stuff in the city. So it would be like, it'd be cool to run through the city. But I said to myself, do I want my first experience that I'm already going to be nervous about, like whether or not I'm going to finish? Like, do I want to have to leave my house at like 2 a.m. from Connecticut, sit around for like 3 or 4 hours before the race starts, not know, like have clothes that I'm never going to see again. Right. So like all these variables that like you have no control over. So I was like, okay, I did the Hartford half marathon 3 years in a row. I know exactly where I park. I know exactly where the start line is. I know exactly what it looks like. You know what I mean? So you're already like familiar with things. And so I think the more things as a beginner that you're familiar with, and you do the same nutrition, same hydration, same shoes, you don't get new shoes, you don't try new food the week of the race, no new clothing, chafing, right, Harrison?
Chafing.
You take care of that. You use your Body Glide, right? You got to test all that out.
Use a whole can of Body Glide. Race. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, I've never actually mentioned this on my podcast, but you did on yours. So I'm going to go there because you were brave enough. But fellas, the Band-Aids on the nipples, like I do it every race.
Oh yeah.
I do it. I heard you talk about it. You have to.
If I'm going any more than about an hour, I do it. I mean, because it's just, you don't know what's going to happen. And the last thing you want, if you're doing like, let's say a 10-mile run, having to stop early or having to like just be completely, in misery the next few days. So
you don't want an Andy Bernard from The Office. I don't know if you watch The Office, but there's an episode where they run like a 5K. Is it 5K?
It's a 5K.
5K. And he's
bleeding.
He's bleeding.
It's amazing. You have to watch. It's called Fun Run.
And so that the concept of chafing was open to us when we watched that. And so Harrison's like, that's not going to happen to me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if anyone's hasn't heard that advice before, and I know myself, I did a half marathon and I started bleeding. Like, it's the most painful experience.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like down my shirt, but I've been at races where literally you see guys finishing with like blood streaks down their tank tops. I'm like, what? Are you joking? Like, how do you even finish?
I don't know how you get to that point, because you would think in the training runs, that you would have learned the lesson, but I haven't. That hasn't happened to me because I take the precautions.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need it. So Band-Aids, fellas, over the nipples to prevent chafing.
Yep.
The Body Glide isn't enough over nipples. It really isn't.
No, it doesn't work.
You put it in other areas where the skin rubs, but no. So that we got sidetracked again, but
I
think that's a great
That's
tip.
not sidetracked. That's important.
That's really important.
That is. That's preparation. That's probably the most important preparation advice we're going to give you on the Healthy Runner podcast. So let me catch up on comments here. Lou was saying that, yes, the first goal in a race is to enjoy it. So not to think about time, as well as a good time for a first marathon. I think this is a good tip, is to finish without an injury, right? So finishing, walking away from your race without hobbling away, and then you're injured, then you can't run for the next 4 weeks or, a couple of months Shauna, thank you so much for jumping on here. Maritza's here on the live. And then Kat says, I'm that girl in the marathon. She loves to strike up conversations, especially during leader miles. It helps. It helps pass
Yeah,
the
You're not
it
time.
the
does.
only
I'm not the only one. Yeah,
All right.
it's one of those things where you have to distract your mind, so you don't overthink it.
Yeah, so let's talk fuel for a little bit. So how do you fuel when running a marathon or a half marathon? What do you guys, what have you learned so far, and some kind of advice that you would give a beginner runner?
Yeah. It's gonna it's gonna depend on the distance. So half marathon is gonna be a whole different conversation than a full. I think we should talk about the half first.
Hmm.
So when Mo ran her first half, you took some fuel, right? During the race?
Oh yes.
What
Yeah.
what's your fuel of preference?
The waffles.
She loves the waffles.
Have you heard of the waffles? The honey stinger?
I
Yeah.
The
have.
honey
I've never
stinger?
tried them personally, but I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I love them. Harrison, though, he there's some other things that he's taken, and I've tried a couple of other things, but I love the waffles. And the thing about me with the half is I actually didn't take like any fuel until like mile 10, and Harrison's like, Mo, you say you're feeling great. And I'm like, yeah. And then like he's like, you gotta like got to back it up here. And then he's like, try taking it earlier, halfway through, or even, and then seeing how the rest of your run goes. And I did do that. And when I actually fueled and drank water, like literally I didn't drink any water and I didn't eat anything or fuel anything up until mile 10. True
Wow.
story. And
Yeah.
I thought I was fine, but I saw a significant difference though in how I was able to finish the race and just overall just how I was feeling physically. So yeah, so I take the waffles, the
Yep.
honey stinger waffles, and then obviously water.
Yeah. So, and I say that about the distances. It matters because in a half marathon, your body kind of already has all the fuel that it needs. You could carb load the days leading up to it. You could hydrate, and technically, I mean, you could get out there. You could run that half marathon without drinking or eating anything. You'd probably struggle the last few miles, but your body has it within. But I would say, yeah, for a half marathon, definitely maybe take 2 gels, space them out, one at 4 miles and one at 8 miles, something like that. The rule of thumb is when you're doing a race, especially a longer race, is about 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. And it's going to depend on your body weight. And so for a full marathon, you want to take that in right from the start. And we've got an episode in the pipeline with a dietitian who's going to go over all of this in detail. And Mo and I don't claim to be pros at all. We just know the very basics. And that is just taking enough fuel to where you're not going to bonk at the end. And honestly, I can't tell you from experience how to do it the right way because I did it the wrong way. So I bonked hard, and that was because I wasn't taking enough gels. I was taking 1 gel every 45 minutes, which when I did the math and I figured how many grams of carbs were in that gel packet, and then every 45 minutes, it wasn't enough carbs to keep my body sustained, which is probably why I bonked so hard at the end. So you really want to make sure you carb load leading up to that race, which we could talk more about if you want to, but also throughout the race, you need to be taking in those carbs, whether it's, it might be the waffles like Mo, it might be the gels like the honey stingers or the goos. One thing that I just got into, Honey Stinger makes little gummies. They're like little circular gummy bites. They're delicious. So that's going to be kind of my new thing, but I think it really depends on how much space you have. We like the flip belt. You can only fit, there's only so much real estate within the flip belt, so when you're running a full marathon, gels seem to be the smallest, the most condensed, but some people, their stomach can't make it work. So it's really going to depend on what you've practiced throughout your training. To your point earlier, you don't want to implement any new products or foods on race day. You want to only use what you've been training with. So, but to answer the question, how do you fuel for a race? I think it's a loaded question. I think you're going to have to listen to either one of your episodes if you've done one on fueling, or we've got season 2, episode 2. We had a dietitian on. She's a Boston qualifying marathoner, and she went into depth what to eat before, what to eat during, and what to eat after.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And we've had some previous episodes on like hydration and fueling.
Yeah.
With UCAN was on the show, and then we also
Awesome.
had
Oh,
Crank Sports as well, and they have e-fuel, their gels, and I know a lot of people use UCAN, their super starch, and that's been helpful. And actually,
Yeah.
next week we're actually having a dietitian on the Healthy Runner podcast next
Perfect.
week.
oh, so cool.
So Jen Giles is going to talk about sports nutrition for runners. So we're going to do that.
Nice.
Episode as well. And yeah, no, it's such an important part. And like Mo, I would highly recommend, like, for your second half, even though you don't feel like you need it, I would
Mhm.
say start earlier, before mile
Yeah.
10, because honestly, your body technically does need it, and you would feel the difference in performance. And then the other thing is, it is going to matter depending upon the climate too. So if you run a
Mhm.
hotter or more
Yeah.
humid half, that
Right.
makes a huge difference in terms
Mhm.
of
Right.
like your electrolytes and the amount of fuel that you need for your race. And yeah, Harrison, like, the marathon is like another animal. And I
Mhm.
think even everything we talked about in terms of the preparation, in terms of the expectations, the fueling that we talked about in this episode, is like the marathon's not just like times two. Like, I feel like it should be like times 3 or 4, even
Yeah.
though it's only double the distance, because
Mhm.
the effect, the compound interest it has on your
Yeah.
body,
Ah, yeah.
and
Mhm.
the demands it places, and going through it myself, the training is just like a different animal, different beast. And that's why, honestly, I haven't done another one yet, because I felt what my body went through during that time period. And then the
Yeah.
time commitment it takes for the training is
Mhm.
just like huge amounts, like a significant difference from, training for a half marathon. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
for those of you who are listening to this and you are training for the full, um, just make sure, like, everything that Harrison and Mo is sharing is like very, very sound advice, and really need to make sure you cover like all those bases that we talked about
Yeah.
in this episode. So guys, we're getting down to the final stretch here. So
Oh
this
All
is like the
right.
final
no.
stretch of your race. So if you could change one thing about the misconception of running your first marathon or half marathon, what would that be?
Harrison, you go first.
Yeah. The the misconception that a lot of people have is that they could never do it, right? And I would like to remove that from everybody's minds. Like, anybody could do it. Honestly, you just got to put in the time. And where you put your energy and your focus, that's where your results are gonna flow to. And so I think it's so important to change that mindset, and to really believe in yourself. Make sure that you um, tell yourself, well, look, if everybody else who finishes a half marathon or a full marathon can do it, I can do it too. And start there, and give yourself enough time. But yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, is people think that they just can't do it. They're not a runner, and that's just not true.
Yeah. And I think for me, I don't know if this is necessarily a misconception, but for me personally, I think the biggest thing was not putting myself in a box of I'm not good enough to run a marathon, or I don't have enough experience to run a marathon. So similar to what Harrison said, but like for me, I know it was running a marathon and training for a full marathon has really allowed me to find myself and have confidence in myself and in my abilities. And so I think it's just important for anyone who not necessarily if they want to like become physically fit, but just if they want to become like just like mentally fit, emotionally fit, like running is kind of a whole 360 thing for me. Like it's going to do that to give you the tools that you need to like be the best version of yourself. And that's been my experience. So I don't know if that's not really a misconception. That's just kind of what I learned.
It works,
Like, I
Mo.
don't know.
It works.
It did.
I
It
don't
I
worked.
thought
It
it
was
was awesome.
perfect. It was perfect. I'm probably going to use it as like the soundbite in the beginning of the
know.
episode.
There you go. You know what's funny
No,
is the sound bites always come from Mo. She's
No,
like
they do
she's like
not.
Yoda. Every time we do one of these things, no, but
Yoda.
you're like way more beautiful,
No,
obviously, than Yoda. But like,
Yoda's adorable. That's not why. I
every interview we do, all the promo, it's Mo.
no, don't no.
And
Here,
my responses are so canned and generic. It's like
no,
yours are like actual from the heart.
no. No.
Oh,
Once
what?
once I connect the dots, one or two things comes out.
See how much I love the chemistry, you guys. That's why I love listening to your podcast. This is awesome. So I'm sure there's going to be many runners out there who've learned something today, and they want to learn more about kind of your Marathon Training for Beginners podcast or your Facebook community. How best can they learn more and find out more about you guys?
Well, we call ourselves the Crummy Marathoners.
Mhm.
It's a play on our last name, but truly we are pretty crummy at it.
Crummy.
And you know, we don't
Not
claim
afraid to admit it.
yeah, we have fun doing it. Like it takes all the pressure off, you know. So anyways, Crummy Marathoner. So you can go to Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We do have a Facebook page, but we just started it and it's, you know, there's nobody there. So you can go like our page. It's at Crummy Marathoners, but really where we spend our time on Facebook is our group, our community. It's marathon training for beginners, full and a half. So if you're training for a full or a half for your very first one, or you still consider yourself a beginner, or even if you're an experienced runner, come join the group because you could contribute a lot to people who are just learning. And it's really fulfilling to be able to help people who are just getting into the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then of course our podcast.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, you can
And
find
that
it
is
anywhere.
Marathon Training for Beginners, correct?
Yep.
Mhm.
Stitcher, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can search either Crummy Marathoners or you can search Marathon Training for Beginners.
And guys, make sure you subscribe to their podcast. So that is the only way Spotify or Apple knows that you actually like the content in a podcast. So we get many people who listen and you just kind of listen to the episode. But if you don't subscribe, then those platforms don't know that it was actually good and then can recommend episodes. So make sure you subscribe to their podcast. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Healthy Runner podcast as well. I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys who jumped here on the Facebook Live. Our audience here, you guys are awesome. Give Harrison and Mo a couple of like thumbs up, give them a couple of loves for taking their time away from their young family that they have to kind of share some information for us to help us as beginner runners. So we talked a lot about kind of expectations, mindset. You even got into like, you were a little Jedi there. Like maybe it is a little Yoda play. I don't know. Like a little Jedi
I love Star
stuff.
Wars. I'm just manifesting it.
That's awesome. We talked mindset, we talked fueling, we talked expectations, preparation. So if you guys just jumped on here now, you're going to want to catch the beginning of this. And then definitely those who are watching the replay on our Spark Your Training YouTube channel, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're listening to the podcast, definitely like, you know, copy this link to the podcast, share it with a friend who's thinking about starting running, or if, you know, you think running can help them out, you've seen the benefits of running yourself, share it with them. So thank you guys so much, seriously, for sharing your story and taking the time to educate us all.
I wouldn't say educate, Dwayne, but entertain rather.
Yes.
It was entertaining.
We thank you for allowing us to be in your presence. So
yeah.
So thank you for having us.
As
No,
always,
you guys are the rock stars.
Yeah, no, as always, go check out Dwayne's podcast. And he's on our podcast as well. Season 2, episode.
And that was a huge one,
8,
by
maybe?
the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Was
Harrison
it?
told you.
Nice.
I think
but-
it's our,
yeah.
our second or third most popular. So
Yes,
yeah. Way to
yes.
go, Dwayne.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we probably should have mentioned that, huh? That we did that episode on your show. So yeah, if you guys want to hear about kind of the 5 tips for healthy running we talked about, as well as common running injuries, check that out on the Marathon Training for Beginners podcast.
It's a mouthful. Yeah.
So
There you go.
I messed it up there. Yeah, no, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. And it was so nice I met Harrison before, but first time meeting you, Mo. This has been great. Seriously, such a treat.
Hey,
Yes,
and
thank
by the
you so
way,
much.
thank you for your Christmas card. It was beautiful. You have a beautiful family.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'm glad that you got it. I'm glad
We
it
got
made its way to Arizona.
All the way here.
Nice.
What an
So
honor.
guys,
This is
thanks
just
again for everyone who tuned in. Remember, every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go live within the Healthy Runner Facebook group. So keep us in mind in your schedule so you can get your running questions answered. Next episode, we're talking sports nutrition for runners with registered dietitian Jen Giles. So thank you again. Remember, stay active, stay healthy, and just keep running. Until next time.
See you, everybody. Thanks, Dwayne.